Yo guys, what is going on? Leo here, and today we are going to take a look at the three gigantic German super heavy behemoths, the E100, the Maus, and the Pz.Kpfw 7. So what we're going to do in this video, basically we're going to compare them to each other, so it will be more clear to you for what tank to go for. So as every versus episode in my channel, we are going to do this through a point system, which you can see on the left of your screen right now. Basically I'm going to be giving every tank 2, 1 or 0 points per category. And these categories are, as you can see on this website, firepower, gun handling, mobility, armor and health, and miscellaneous stats. So now you guys know how I'm going to judge these tanks, so yeah, let's get right into it. So let's start right off at the first category, which is firepower. As you can see right here, these three tanks have quite some different guns. We have the E100 with a 150mm, we've got the Maus with a 128mm, and we've got the Pz.Kpfw 7 with a 128mm. But these 128mm are quite a bit different. As you can see right here, just to start from top to bottom, let's start with the DPM. This has nothing actually to do with the caliber, but as you can see, the Maus is on top with 2555, followed up by the E100, and then at last the Pz.Kpfw. But take this with a grain of salt, guys, because as you can see right here, we are currently on patch 9.19.1, and if you paid a bit attention to the World of Tanks page lately, you could have noticed that the Maus actually is getting his DPM nerfed. So it doesn't give the exact values of the Maus's new DPM in 9.20, but I suppose it will be quite close to the E100, probably in between the E100 and the Pz.Kpfw 7. So just take that in mind, guys. But for now, I'm just gonna go with the 9.19.1 stats. So yeah, the Maus is of course on top. Then penetration wise, 246 for the E100, 246 for the Maus. Pz.Kpfw has a little bit of an advantage with 258. That extra standard ammo penetration can be quite nice. Now, and here is the biggest difference between these tanks according to the gun, and that's the alpha damage. The E100 has a massive 750 alpha damage on his 150mm. Then the Maus has the regular 490 alpha damage that you can see on pretty much every 128mm heavy tank gun. But then we come to the Pz.Kpfw 7, and this thing actually has 560 alpha damage, which is quite a boost actually. It's basically around the same gun as the Jagdtiger, that's how you need to compare it to, but then of course with a lot less DPM. So that's the alpha damage for now. The module damage is of course the highest on the E100 since that's the higher caliber, and exactly the same on the Maus and the Pz.Kpfw since they have exactly the same caliber. So yeah, E100 wins on that. Then the rate of fire, of course, E100 is the worst since that's the highest caliber, so it takes the longest time to reload. Then the Maus is the best, but again, take this with a grain of salt because they were going to nerf the reload, as I already said with the DPM of the Maus. So it will probably end up also somewhere around 4 to 3, that kind of region. So, and yeah, the Pz.Kpfw 7 has a rate of fire of 3.91, which makes the reload times in total for the E100 19.18 seconds, for the Maus 11.51 seconds, and for the Pz.Kpfw 7 15.34 seconds. Then the clip size, clip reload, yeah, it's all not a problem because none of them are autoloaders. Then as you can see right here, as I already said, the caliber 150 on the E100 and 128 on these two vehicles. Then the shell velocity, and this is something that is very nice on the Pz.Kpfw. The E100 has an atrocious shell velocity of 757. So if you're trying to snipe with the E100, which you actually should not do since it also hasn't got the accuracy for it, but we'll get to that in the next category. But also the shell velocity is 757. That is a little bit better than the KV2, and you guys probably know how bad the KV2 shell velocity is and how long it takes to get to the target. So if you're in a sticky situation and you have to snipe with the E100, you have to give it a lot of lead, which can make it quite tricky to do effective damage on long range. Then the Maus has actually quite decent shell velocity, 920 meters per second, which is okay. It's not one of the best, it's also not one of the worst, it's just average, you can say. But then if you take a look at the Pz.Kpfw 7, it has a shell velocity of 1100, which is actually quite good, to be honest. It's more actually in the tank destroyer range of shell velocities. So with the Pz.Kpfw 7, you shouldn't worry too much about how much lead you're going to give at the longer ranges. And then the max range is like exactly the same for every tank in the game. Then the ammo capacity is 50 for the E100, 68 for the Maus, and 40 for the Pz.Kpfw 7. And that's actually one of the weaknesses of the Pz.Kpfw. That is, the amount of ammo that you can take is not that large, as you can see right here, which makes the potential damage output of the E100 a massive 37,000. That's probably enough to kill 1.5 enemy team. Also, the Maus is also not too worried about the potential damage output, 33,000, also more than enough. But the Pz.Kpfw 7, 22,400, you also have to consider that you're probably going to miss or not penetrate a few of your shots. So in the games where you really have to carry, you might run into some ammo problems with the Pz.Kpfw 7. So guys, that wraps it up for the firepower. The points I'm going to give is actually quite tricky, since the Maus is, yeah, I don't really know what values the Maus has. But for now, with the 9.19 stats, I'm gonna put the Maus on number 1, which could possibly change in 9.20, but I guess you have to find it out yourself. I'm going to put the Pz.Kpfw 7 on number 2. Simply because of the amazing shell velocity, amazing penetration, and the kinda midway alpha damage. And at last, the E100, which only actually has the massive alpha damage advantage over the two. And for the photo, has nothing really to shine in about. Then we go to category number 2, which is gun handling, which also quite have some difference in it. So let's get straight into it. So here you can see that the E100 definitely has the highest caliber because the gun handling is absolutely atrocious. Oh well, no, I should not say that. It's not atrocious like KV2 like, but it is indeed very bad. As you can see, the aim time 2.78 seconds, which actually is quite okay for a 150mm gun. But the Maus, of course, exceptional aim time, 2.01 seconds. But guys, again, this is probably going to change in 9.20 because Wargaming said they were going to nerf the DPM and the accuracy of the Maus. So it will probably more be like the Pz.Kpfw 7, as you can see right here, which clocks in at 2.49 seconds aim time, which also is fairly decent for a heavy tank. Then a dispersion 0.38 on the E100, as expected with a 150mm gun. 0.35 on the Maus and 0.35 on the Pz.Kpfw 7. I don't think they're going to change the dispersion on the Maus because it's already pretty close to its competitors. So you can just say that that's going to be like the final dispersion amount. Then the dispersion while moving, tank traverse and turret traverse is actually quite similar. 0.20 on the E100 for moving, 0.19 and 0.19 on these guys. Then again, tank traverse also 0.20, 0.19, 0.19. Nothing too much of a difference about the turret traverse though. The E100 is 0.10, which is, it's okay, not too bad, not too good. The Maus actually has a very good 0.05, but I think that's also probably going to change. I'm not sure, but I just think so because it's actually pretty overpowered. As you guys probably all know, the Maus is pretty overpowered at the moment. And that's probably one of the stats that could make the big difference for the amount of snapshots that you're going to make with the Maus and stuff like that. But then 0.08 for the Pz.Kpfw 7 is of course pretty good. Then after firing, yeah, it's not really that important. It's because they are not autoloaders. It's 3.84 for the E100, 2.88 on the Maus, and 3.84 on the Pz.Kpfw. Then the damage, yeah, it's also not so important because most of you guys are probably going to fix the gun like straight away, so I'm just going to skip that for now. Gun elevation 20 degrees on the E100, very good. 24 degrees on the Maus, also very good. 17 degrees on the Pz.Kpfw 7, though it's kind of lackluster. For example, if you're on the map Himmelsdorf and you have to shoot all the way up on the hill, you might not get the right angle on the Pz.Kpfw 7, while these two tanks actually have no problem pointing their gun up to their targets. Then gun depression 7 degrees for the E100, it's okay, you might struggle on some hilly maps, but it shouldn't matter too much on most of the maps. Then 8 degrees, yeah, I don't know, at some hills you might have the advantage, but it's not such a big deal for heavy tanks anyways, because they're mostly fighting in city environments. And as already said, 7 degrees in the Pz.Kpfw 7, also nothing wrong with that. The turrets turn around all the way at all the 3 vehicles, so all 360 degrees turret traverse. And yeah, that wraps it up for the gun handling as well. Of course, for now, I'm going to give 2 points to the Maus because of the amazing gun handling it has. It might change again next patch, but you gotta find it out yourself. Of course, at second, the Pz.Kpfw 7 with 1 point. And at last, the E100 with the atrocious aim stats at 0 points. Then we go to category number 3, mobility, which is actually quite interesting for these vehicles. So as you can see right here, the forward speed on the E100 is 30 km per hour, which is quite healthy for a heavy tank. But then the Maus 20 km per hour. Oh, and this just kills the urge for me to get the Maus, you know. because it's just my personal opinion, but everything that goes 20 kilometers per hour or slower, I just really don't like playing with. It's just too slow for me. I don't know. I'm also more of a medium tank guy. Maybe that also plays a role in it. But nah, 20 kilometers per hour is just a no-go for me. But then again, 33 on the Pz.Kpfw even is actually quite okay for a heavy tank, like nothing to complain about. Then reverse speed is 15 for all the 3 of the vehicles. 15, it's quite healthy, it's not good, it's not bad, it's okay, it's just right in the middle, completely average. Then the engine power, and oh boy, these tanks have some powerful engines. The E100 has a 1200 horsepower engine, the same as for the Pz.Kpfw, even also a 1200 horsepower engine. And then the Maus with a massive 1750 horsepower engine. But it kinda needs it if you take a look at the weight right here, 188 tons. That is a solid 98 tons more than the Pz.Kpfw and about 80 tons more than the E100. So yeah, that's of course quite a lot. For the E100, 129,000 tons, and for the Pz.Kpfw it's even 120,000 tons. But it's not that important if you take a look at it. It actually summarizes in the next stat, which we are going to take a look at right here. It's the power to weight ratio. For the E100, 9.24, Maus 9.26, for the Pz.Kpfw it's even 10. They're not great for heavy tanks, but then again, these are super heavy tanks. They're not meant to go fast. But yeah, overall, nah, not such great power to weight ratios. Now the terrain resistance, surprisingly on the E100, is actually pretty okay if you compare it to the other two, which is absolutely garbage. So you might struggle with all 3 of these vehicles on swap maps, but if you had to take a pick and you really are a diehard swap map fan, go for the E100 because it is going to pop up better in it. Then the turret reverse, again the fastest on the E100, 20 degrees per second, 16 degrees per second on the Maus, very slow indeed. In comparison with the Maus, the E100 turret reverse feels like a thunderbolt to me. It's absolutely crazy. Then just right in the middle, 18 degrees per second for the Pz.Kpfw even. It is still bad, but not as bad as the Maus, so it's okay. Then the tank reverse, 22 degrees per second on the E100, which is also bad, but actually, considering it is a super heavy, it's not that bad if you think about it. Then the Maus, 15 degrees per second, it's absolutely shit. Just like the turret reverse, the Maus just doesn't turn fast, it's not one of his things. Then for the Pz.Kpfw even, it actually has 25 degrees per second, which is best in class. 25 degrees per second is actually very good for a super heavy tank. So yeah, thumbs up for the Pz.Kpfw. So yeah, that wraps it up for the mobility. So points wise, the 2 points go to the Pz.Kpfw simply because of the highest top speed and the best tank reverse. Then at second with 1 point comes the E100, and then of course at worst with 0 points comes the Maus with the absolutely atrocious mobility stats. And now we have come probably to one of the, well, actually the most interesting category. Considering it are heavy tanks, it is armor and health, of course. So at first, take a look at the on-paper stats. It is 200 millimeters at the front, 120 on the side, and 150 at the rear for the E100. Again, 200 millimeters at the front, 185 at the side, and 160 at the rear for the Maus. And then 240 at the front, 160 at the side, and 120 at the rear for the Pz.Kpfw. I cannot say too much about these stats because you really have to take a look at the 3D model, which we're going to do in just a minute. So you just gotta wait a little bit for that. Then turret armor, 250 millimeters at the front, 150 at the side, 150 at the rear for the E100. 260 at the front, 210 on the side, and 210 at the rear for the Maus. Very, very good. Probably the best in class in the game. Maybe even beaten by the Type 5, but I'm not sure about that. Just overall pretty damn good. And then the Pz.Kpfw gets even 200 millimeters at the front, 160 at the side, and 120 at the rear. So these numbers actually tell you nothing about the real armor of the tank. To find that out, we have to take a look at the 3D models, which we are going to do right now. So here we are at the 3D model. So just to clarify, we are going to take every 3D model into 2 different perspectives. One if it's facing its armor straight on like this, and the other perspective is if it's angling like that. So for now, we're just gonna start with the situation where the tank is facing you straight on like this. So as you can see right here, of course, the upper plate, the E100, very strong, around 330 to 310 millimeters thick. Most tier 10 tank destroyers are going to have some troubles panning that, so if you're encountering an E100, never shoot it here, it's just a lost case. Then the lower plate, here is where you want to shoot an E100, 240mm to 255. It's still good, you still are going to bow most tier 8 and 9 vehicles, but tier 10 should have no problem panning you in the lower plate from this angle. And then the front, the turret, 280 to 250 at the turret ring. So with standard ammo, you could go try and aim for the turret ring. It's only 250mm thick, so it's probably going to be a 50-50 for most tier 10 tanks to pen it. But if you are really a scrub, you just load heat and just pepper the front of this turret. I mean, most heat ammo has 300+ of penetration, so you should have no problems panning this at the front of the turret. And then the gun mantlet, yeah, don't even try. It's like Bound City here. And also, if you are really desperate, or if you are a tier 8 tank and you really desperately need to pan an E100, you could try to go for this strip white here, which is 205mm thick, which should be penetrable for most tier 8 vehicles, but as you can see right here, it is very hard to hit. Also, considering the E100 is a very tall tank, so you are basically going to see this most of the times. And yeah, good luck hitting that. It's just a no-go. So now let's take a look at the 3D model of the mouse when it's facing you head on. So we're going to start again with the upper plate, 280mm to 272mm. It's okay. But again, the mouse is made for angling, and we are just going to take a look at that in the next stage of the armor viewers. Then the lower plate, 250mm, should be around a 50-50 for most tier 10 vehicles if they're going to pan it straight on. Then we have the turret, 250, just don't shoot it here. If you are really desperate and you need to shoot the turret, shoot at the cheeks, 260mm. You're probably gonna need premium ammo to pan it, but hey, if you haven't got another choice, this is your best option. But anywhere else, all turrets, just don't even try, because of the ball, if you can see right here. Because of the round shape, it only has a weak spot right here in the middle if you really have to fire the turret, which I do not recommend at all. And yeah, gun mantlets, again, don't even try. Yet again, Bound City, just don't even try. And now the final tank, frontally, the Pz.Kpfw VII. If you take a look at here, 250 to 240mm thick on the upper plate, which is actually pretty damn sweet. Probably best in class for these three when it's not angling. But then the lower plate is still actually pretty good, like 300 to 260 at its weakest. So yeah, 260, it's probably gonna be like a 40% of most tier 10s if they're going to pen it or not. And the turret is actually pretty damn good on this thing, to be honest. It's quite like a lava shape, but then with more armor. If you really need to shoot the turret, don't try aim for this, because the gun mantle, as you can see right here, it's sticking up, so it's protecting a little bit of the cupola. If you're really desperate and you really need to shoot this thing in the turret, go for right here. There's one tiny little bit, that's 220mm thick. So if you're lucky, you might hit it and you might penetrate the vehicle from there. So now let's take a look at the armor models when they are angling at a 45-degree angle. So if you take a look at here, the E100s, it is basically everywhere. Bound City, the lower plate even has become 330. The upper plate around the 400s to an auto bounce. The turret as well, around the 300s, maybe right here if you are lucky you can hit it. But there's one teeny tiny weak spot where some of you guys may not know. That is right here in the tracks. It's 180mm, and as you can see in the visual model right here, this is basically why you need to aim, this little triangular gap right here. So if the E100 is angling and you see this, just go for this. This is probably your best chance to pan it when the E100 is angled. But again, if the E100 is turning its turret like this, just pepper it with heat at the front and you should be good to go. Then the mouse at a 45-degree angle. This is basically just a lost case already. Look at that. The weakest point I see is right here. This is 290mm thick, so you basically always need to fire premium rounds if you want to penetrate a mouse that's angling. Also, the weak spot on the E100 is also not existent on the mouse. It's like 500mm here, so you should not even try to hit that. Also, the sides pretty close to auto bounce zone. The front pretty close to auto bounce zone. Basically summarize, the mouse is impenetrable every standard round in the game when it is angling. And now we take a look at the Pz.Kpfw VII when it's angling at 45 degrees, and this is actually looking quite bad for the vehicle. But as you can see right there, the lower plate has actually become pretty good, 300mm, do not even bother shooting it here. If you need to penetrate a Pz.Kpfw VII that's angling, shoot it right here. It is such an easy penetration. 175, probably IS guns are even gonna pen this, like an IS-6 or something. So if it's angling, and that's also one of the main weaknesses and one of the worst points about the Pz.Kpfw, that is just this weak spot in its armor. Also, if you take a look right here to see where it comes from, it's basically because this is round, it actually creates a flat angle right here, where you just have the flat 160 side armor just facing you. But for the further rest, it's actually quite well armored at the front. The turret, if it turns the turret towards you, which you should always do, by the way, if you're a Pz.Kpfw driver, always keep the turret facing straight towards your enemies, not like the mouse in the E100, where you have to angle the turret to make it more effective. With the Pz.Kpfw, just turn it straight towards him and you should have the best armor values on your turret. But then again, this spot, it just kills the tank for me, to be honest. So yeah, that was the in-depth view of the armor models. We have still a few stats left to cover. It's the track armor. It's nothing too special actually. So we just move on. The health though, it is 2,700 for the E100, which is already pretty damn sweet. A massive 3,200 hit points for the mouse, which is actually the most hit points of any tank in the game. And then we have the Pz.Kpfw with 2,500, which is actually quite average for a tier 10 heavy tank. Then engine health, track health, ammo health, not that important. It's basically how fast your engine is going to die or how fast you're going to get ammo wrecked. It's basically actually exactly the same for all these three vehicles, so it doesn't matter too much. So that wraps it up for the armor and health. Of course, the 2 points, what a surprise, are going to go to the mouse, just simply because look at that, it is just mission impossible penetrating this thing if it's angling. It's so broken. And then the number 2 spot with 1 point is going to go to the E100, which only has this teeny tiny weak spot when it's angling, so it is still okay. And then the 3rd place for the category and also the 0 points go, of course, to the Pz.Kpfw, simply because of this massive weak spot and this massive shoot me here button when it's angling. It's just so atrocious. So that wraps it up for the armor and health category. Now we have only one category left, which are the miscellaneous stats, and we can go to them pretty quickly because they're pretty similar. The DV range, the same for every vehicle, 400 meters, which is pretty standard for a tier 10 vehicle. Radio range also exactly the same because I think they carry exactly the same radio, 750 meters, also very average for every tier 10 vehicle. Then the chance to be set on fire is 3% higher in the E100, so you actually might want to take a fire extinguisher instead of chocolate on the E100 because it is a little bit more vulnerable to be lit on fire. And then 12% on the mouse and the Pz.Kpfw, so you might be a bit more comfortable taking chocolate in these vehicles than in the E100. Then the tank costs, they're all tier 10s, they're all gonna cost 6.1 million, so no difference there. Also the shell cost, it is a little bit cheaper on the mouse, but it's only 190 credits, so it doesn't make such a big difference to me. So yeah, miscellaneous wise, 2 points to the mouse because of the less chance to be set on fire and the cheaper ammo. 1 point to the Pz.Kpfw only because of the fire chance, and 0 points for the E100 because it's only the fire chance really. So that wraps it up for the miscellaneous stat and also for all of the stats of these vehicles. So now guys, the moment you all have been waiting for, let's go straight to the conclusion. And here we are at the conclusion of this video. So to start off with, if you just look at the raw statistics, you can clearly see that the mouse is the best tank, followed up by the Pz.Kpfw, and at last, and also stat-wise the worst, the E100. But as I say in pretty much every compare video, to determine the tank that will perform the best for you, you must take a look at your own playstyle. For example, if you like to have nearly impenetrable armor and don't mind being limited to 20 km/h or having a kinda average standard heavy tank gun, you should go for the mouse. But on the other hand, if you like some extra speed and having a very punchy gun, which still remains pretty accurate, go for the Pz.Kpfw. Or if you love dealing 750 alpha bombs and don't mind sloppy accuracy, go for the E100. So considering this, my personal top 3 would be the E100 at first, the Pz.Kpfw at second, and the mouse at third. And I know that's completely the other way around, but that's simply because I love having a unique high alpha damage heavy tank gun, and I simply hate playing in any tank that can't do over 20 km/h. So guys, that was it for this video. I hope I helped you guys decide on what tank to go for. So if you found this video helpful, please give it a like, I would highly appreciate it. Also comment down below your top 3 picks, I'm very curious on your opinion as well. But for now, I'm just gonna say have an awesome day and I'll catch you guys later.